One of the things I cover on this channel a lot, because I am a practical occultist, is the existence of spirits. And one of the things that I mentioned in a video I did recently is the existence of familiar spirits. And I didn't really do a very good job of covering what familiar spirits are and how they function, and what they even do. So today I'm going to rectify this situation by doing an entire video all about familiar spirits. I am Dave the Amateur Magus. If you enjoy my content, feel free to subscribe and share it out. And if you really enjoy this content, Patreon link in the description down below. Let's get into the video. Familiar spirits. Now, a lot of people, when they think of a familiar, are going to think of the traditional witch's cat stereotype. This is not how familiars work at all in my experience, and it never has been. You don't have like an animal that just does things for you on the astral. Usually what'll happen is you'll go to a major spirit and you will talk to the spirit, and the spirit will give you one of their underlings kind of on loan, and that spirit will work for you and do the things you're supposed to be, having them do. Now, for example, in the Orbital of Magick, you're going to be having the Olympic planetaries give familiars, and there is nothing wrong with the Olympic planetary familiars. Actually, they're probably some of the better familiars as a whole. The other two major books that you're going to have familiars out of are going to give you demonic familiars. The first one being the Ars Goetia. There is some notable listings as the demon gives you familiar spirits, which are just like an underling demon who is supposed to work for you. And the other book is the Sacred Magic of Obermelon the Mage. You knew that was coming if you've heard me talk about the Obermelon. That being said, all of three of these books have familiars that work very differently from each other in my personal experience. Not that I have much experience with the Goetia ones, but I do know roughly how they function. So first of all, let's cover all of the generalized things about familiars, and then we can get into the specifics later on. Now, generally speaking, all familiars are going to be spirits who you are on a first-name basis with, and you don't need fancy rituals to call them. They're really just kind of in your proximity. The best way to explain this is that they're in your local environment, or, alternatively, they are on speed dial. It really depends on the nature of the spirit. It is said in some grimoires and some books that whenever you're not talking to the familiars of the Orbital, they're residing in the section of the astral corresponding to their planetary power for the Orbital Spirits. This is different from the obvious demons of the Goetia and the Obermelon. That being said, generally what happens is you give them a task, they tell you if they can do the task, if they can't do the task, they tell you why. And it's a whole conversation about, can you do this? Is this task too difficult? What would make it easier? Do I need to get somebody else to help you out on this? It's a kind of a dialogue with your spirits that are assisting you. But the ultimate goal is, I want this thing. Can you get me this thing? And usually the answer is yes or no. And if the answer is no, the question becomes, why? And from here on out, we're going to be talking about more specifics, and I'm going to be starting with the Orbital. Now, sometimes the spirits of the Orbital will actually reply, I can do that, but it's a stupid fucking idea. Because sometimes you've just asked them to do something that will cause effectively a Rube Goldberg machine, and they'll be like, no, that's a terrible idea, I'm not going to do that. Because they generally have your best interests in mind, because they want a good relationship with you, because, look, you're kind of stuck with each other at that point. You kind of want a good relationship at that point, and honestly, you want the best relationship with your familiars, and vice versa. At least for ones given by typically benevolent entities. So sometimes, hypothetically speaking, let's say you decide that you've gotten a planetary familiar from Hagith, the Olympic planetary of Venus, and you've decided to ask them, let's say you've decided to ask them to make a specific individual fall in love with you. Maybe you're really crushing over this person, and they just respond, That's a terrible fucking idea, and I'm not gonna do it, because you do not want to get involved with that person. They are terrible for you. And you ask why, and then you get a laundry list of every bad trait that is toxic to you and the way that you as a person interact. Now then you of course ask the question, well, what should I do? Like, well, what would be better instead? And they will reply with some better answer for what they can do for you, because not every spirit is going to be like, yeah, I'm just going to do that willy-nilly. Now, switching gears a little bit to the demonic familiars are different. Demonic familiars need a lot more hand-holding. Let's say we're using the love example again. For some ungodly reason, you're going to a love spell, like you're going to a demon for love. That's never worked out for anyone, but hypothetically speaking. So you end up asking your demonic familiar that you got from one of the love demons, hey, can you make this person fall in love with me? And the demon goes, done. And they do it. And you get into a relationship with a crazy psycho bitch. Now, I'm using this love spell stuff as an example because it's a lot more explosive when it causes problems, but hypothetically speaking, you could apply this to money spells. Like, let's say you wanted to get a new money spell and you ask the Orbital Familiar and they go, yeah, sure, I'll just get you a raise and it'll be fine. And you go ask a demon and it's like, yeah, sure, let me just break stuff and then get you some insurance money. That's the best way to do that. Now, this is typically more standard for big name demons. Like, I know, I've heard people say that Bonet has done this before, but practice common, everyday binding actions and you won't have problems, generally speaking, especially when dealing with demons. Planetary familiars are a lot more, like, ambiguous in if they're going to be beneficial or not, but generally speaking, you're going to want to make sure that you are binding down things you don't want. So, with no harm done, while blessing all involved, which will make the demon familiars go, ugh. That's all the common stuff. I shouldn't need to mention that, but it's important to have the safety regulations for dealing with spirits reinforced every now and again. So now, here's where we get to the part where I explain how spirits work a little bit. The way these spirits work is you ask them to do a task, and they go to the astral/spirit realm. There's a lot of names for it, but I'm going to be calling it the astral realm. And they do work in the astral to manifest things in the physical. There's a lot of different reasons as to why spirits would want to do this. Like, why would they even care about the physical realm? Generally speaking, the best way to understand it is that the spirit realm is really boring because there's infinite potential. It's kind of like you have an infinite amount of time and ability to do whatever you want, but you really don't care about 90% of it, which is a good reason why spirits are so willing to work with people, because the more abstract spirits, like demons, angels, and planetary spirits, have more of an incentive to work with us because they're kind of bored. Angels kind of get told by God to work with us, so that's the reason they do it. Demons are forced to work with us due to being former angel. That's a weird one. And spirits, like planetary spirits, basically just get bored and they enjoy the company of humans and mortals, and they just want to fuck around in the physical world, and they want to affect it and see their particular flavor of things they enjoy spread throughout the physical plane. Now, the martial spirits are going to want to increase martial things, like they're going to want you to be more energetic, they're going to want you to work out more, they're going to want you to pump iron and all that shit. The Venerian spirits are going to want to promote love and beauty. The mercurial spirits are going to want to promote speed and quickness. The demonic familiars don't really do that, though. The demonic familiars are there because you kind of bound them. They're kind of there because they have to be, not because they want to be. That being said, it's more like you're now no longer under their control, they're under your control, so it's kind of a reversal of fortune type thing. It's like, oh god, alright, well, I guess this guy is now the leader of the work crew. That being said, that's all I got on familiars. I have been Dave, the Amateur Magus. Hope you're having a good day. If you're not having a good day, hope your day gets better. Take it easy.